I'm Jared.
I'm Marcus.
Level with us. Hello, and welcome to the show where we have a cozy game discussion every week. This week, we are going to be discussing the spoilers for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. We've already covered this game. We kind of went over our first impressions, but now we've both played through the full game. It's been a couple months. We're going to talk about the story. We're going to talk about what we thought of the dungeons. Basically, full spoilers ahead, but if you don't want to listen to the spoilers, at least skip to the end of the episode, because we're giving away a copy of a free indie game that is really, really good. So stay tuned for that to learn how you can win one. So you've just finished the game. How do you feel about Tears of the Kingdom, Marcus, in totality?
It is a fantastic Zelda game. I think that it's incredible. I enjoyed it. So general feelings are good, I would say.
Good.
How about yourself? Was it exciting? Was it disappointing in any way? Or
it was exciting. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I feel like the longer I've gone since playing it, the less positive I feel. Still positive, just it doesn't have that same newness. I talked about this last time, so I won't harp on it. It doesn't have that same new magic that Breath of the Wild had for me, where it was unlike anything I'd ever played. This was very much like something I've played, but It was really good. It was just, I wouldn't for me personally, I wouldn't rank it above Breath of the Wild, mostly just because of how much of a revelation that game felt like.
Sure. You know, it's been interesting to me, just talking in passing with a lot of people who've also been experiencing this game. I've heard some people say, like, yeah, I just wish that it was more like a sequel, you know, like they just changed so much and they don't harp on the same story beats and it feels like it's a totally different thing. And other people being like, yeah, it didn't even really feel like it was different enough. I think they should have just called this DLC or something. And so some people are like, yeah, it's too different, and other people are like, yeah, it's not different enough. And it made me just think of how difficult it is to make a sequel to a very beloved game. But personally, I think that in terms of mechanics and story, I think that they made something that is absolutely like worth playing in its own right. But yeah, should we jump into story stuff?
Yeah, let's do it. So final sequence, final boss, loved it. I like it a lot. This is one thing where I'm like, yeah, that was a lot better than Breath of the Wild's final boss. Like, I just had so much fun facing Ganondorf, and then of course having the spectacle fight afterwards is what I call it. I'm like, okay, there has to be a Dark Beast Ganon equivalent. And sure enough, it's riding Dragon Zelda through the sky. I just loved it. And in particular, my favorite moment is when Ganondorf, you know, powers up, becomes Super Saiyan, whatever, and then his health bar just crawls across the entire screen to the edge. That was great. I love little gaming moments like that. It's just kind of a little like, hey, you're gonna have a hard time. He wasn't that hard. But it felt scary, and that was
right.
Cool.
Yeah, I liked how he like beckons towards you as well. Like some of the character details of Ganondorf. I also I think the biggest spoiler for this game is the fact that Zelda in the past has turned into a dragon and has been a dragon for, you know, however many thousands of years. So I think it's cool that that's kind of like the story through line in a way, is like, you know, the tears of the dragon, and then depending on what order of memories you get, you can eventually figure out, you know, or maybe really quickly figure that out. So I think that in addition to it being a really cool spectacle, it's also a nice button on the entire kind of central mystery of the game to have that final fight be dragon versus dragon.
Yeah. Once you figure out that Zelda is a dragon, you know, there was a point at the final boss where I'm like, oh, hang on, he's probably going to eat that, isn't he? Oh, yeah, okay, here we go, kind of thing, which was cool. It was a cool little payoff at the end. I almost wish it had more of a tragic ending with Zelda trapped as a dragon. I think that would have been more impactful. But at the same time, I don't know, I'm a sucker for like the little, at the beginning of the game, how Link reaches out for Zelda and misses. And so you get to do that same thing, but actually catch her this time. Mm-hmm. So that feels very gratifying, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then Zelda looks straight in the camera. It's like, I'm so happy. I'm going to cry. Is this a dream?
I'm like, this is the point where all the Twitch streamers start
crying,
tearing up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I mentioned this to you before, Jared, but I think my only feedback for the ending is I just wish they could have made Link smile. They give him little emotional moments, little moments of showing emotion throughout the game, mostly embarrassment or surprise or being startled. But I don't feel like it would break the immersive, you are the hero, if they just had a shot of Link smiling, So it felt...
I agree.
It felt very... I don't know. It felt a little more stark, the fact that Link never reacts when you have, this emotional ending, and it's, directed towards a character, and as far as you can see, the character is just blank slate,
Sure. I agree. It feels a little robotic. During the gameplay, Link not speaking, not emoting as much, except when he's freezing cold or about to eat a yummy meal. I think that does work really well, but I agree. In the cutscenes, I would like to see, we know he's a character. We've read in these, journals and stuff, what things he's done and how he feels about certain things. I completely agree with you.
Link emotes more eating a spicy fruit bowl than he does seeing
Zelda. Yeah. Right. That's true. Well, food is very important to him.
Yeah. He really is just, his real quest is just going around making some of the world's best foods.
Speaking of big story moments, I think this game, I just mentioned I don't think it really held up for me compared to Breath of the Wild. I hope I didn't come off as ultra negative, because there were certain moments that I thought just felt amazing, and one of them was the Master Sword get. I thought that was one of the coolest Master Sword gets of any Zelda game, when you pull it out of the head of a dragon, basically. I took some screenshots. They framed it very well. Same with the final battle. There was some really good framing of the... some really screenshot-worthy moments, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Some definitely iconic, well framed. I agree. Something I want to ask you about, one of the kind of more prevalent side quests that you run into is the Lucky Clover Gazette or something like that. You're going around helping this newspaper find Zelda or keep track of stories. I really enjoyed it because kind of the central twist you can figure out pretty early on is all of these are dead leads for Zelda. All of them are misunderstandings or Yiga conspiracies or, some sort of bait and switch. I thought that they were very entertaining, even though I caught on very quickly. What do you think of those?
Oh, it was fun. It was very fun. I really liked the reward for that. The frog armor is just cool. I wore the frog armor for most of the game, at least the top part of it, because it was my most easily upgradable armor, so it ended up being my best armor for a while. And just having a little more slick resistance came in handy a lot. So, and also just the idea of working for a newspaper, it's kind of fun. I kind of like that.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other memorable side quests or side, moments?
If it counts as a side, I think it's a side adventure. I don't remember the difference between side adventures and side quests. I think it's bigger side quests. But my favorite one by far is the monster raid battles. Did you do any of those?
Of course, yes.
So throughout the game, you get to fight alongside Hylians to remove the monster menace from the land. And whenever you finish one, they're like, okay, but remember, there's going to be a blood moon, so we got to keep doing this. But I really liked that, though. I missed them for the first 10 hours of gameplay. I didn't know where they were, and I kept hearing about it, and I really wanted to do it. But it just feels like the game feels more lived in. It's really cool that you're fighting alongside villagers who have buckets on their heads and little pitchforks with a mushroom attached to it. Like they're doing the best they can, you know. But it's nice that like Hyrule is fighting back now.
Right.
You're with them, you're all in it together. And they don't do a lot of damage, but I feel like, and tell me what you think of this, I feel like the combat design of this game is, hey, let's swarm the player with tons of enemies. So it's really beneficial to have companions, like the sages, of course, or villagers who can distract enemies so you can take them out, more 1v1 style. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I felt like they made the design around, because they really want you to use, bombs and muddle buds and experiment, but also unlock sages so that it becomes a little easier, not because you're stronger, but because you have other people to distract enemies.
I agree. Yeah, I think that there's a reason you have to kind of go through a horde mode before you face the final boss. You have to face these waves of enemies. I also think it probably is to encourage creativity with vehicle and weapon design, because, if you figure out there are tons here, but if I just put this laser on this tire and let it spin around, it kind of encourages you to think of more than just one-on-one combat.
I felt the same way about the combat. One of them is like, oh, okay, we're on a pirate ship. Another one's on a bridge. And I approached those combat scenarios differently.
Oh yeah, the bridge was fun because you could just worry about knocking them off the bridge, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, right. And then, Eventide Island and Hateno Village, or sorry, not Hateno, Lurelin, both had their own kind of combat scenarios. Lurelin in particular was really difficult because I did it when I had 4 hearts.
Wow.
But that was kind of rewarding.
Yeah.
I died a couple times and then I finally got through it, especially if I was able to knock them into the water. That was really cool, but I think that one was maybe designed with sages in mind. I'm not sure. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I know this is not necessarily a complex combat game, but everyone harps on how cool the experimentation is with the Zonai devices. The Zonai devices actually didn't appeal to me that much. I'm not really creative in terms of building vehicles and stuff, but I really like getting creative with combat. So that was my favorite part. Oh, and also, sorry, the shrines as well. The combat shrines, that's by and large one of the best improvements to Breath of the Wild, in my opinion. Is I enjoyed the combat shrines of Breath of the Wild, but there's 20 of them and they're identical, basically. This one, it's like Eventide Island from the last game. They strip you of all your stuff and they tell you to go at it. Right. And I find that kind of gameplay really rewarding. I'm like, okay, starting from scratch again. What's my game plan? Where am I going to start? How am I going to approach this?
Yeah, I thought they were very puzzly.
Really fun.
Yeah, it was very puzzly to
Yeah, puzzly combat.
Sometimes it was named something, and I'd be like, what does it mean when it says, a shocking, fight or whatever? And then you're like, oh, if I go all the way to the back, there's something that can electrocute, and then you can kind of plan the perfect route and decide which one to kill first to get their weapon. Yeah, I'm on the same page as you.
For sure.
Another really memorable part of this game for me is all of the times you get to face Master Koga in the depths. In addition to him just being a really funny, iconic character from the previous game, or games if you count Calamity, it's fun that it kind of is the culmination of the vehicle creation aspect of the game. It's like every one of these boss fights is on a vehicle. So that was really fun. And then the Yiga in general are kind of the main source of inspiring ideas for creating stuff. You'll find enemies on the surface that have certain weapon fusions, and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I could glue that to a stick, at least early on in the game. But then the Yiga in the depths, it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I could create something like that. And so you get their schematics, or you can just see what they're doing and then try to copy it. So I thought that was a cool addition.
Right. And story-wise, I actually really enjoyed that too, because the last time we saw Koga, he was falling down an endless chasm. And so it just made sense when I started to realize, when I ran into a Yiga camp the first time from visiting the Great Plateau. And it was cool because the game was rewarding me for being like, oh, you remember the Great Plateau? Well, let's put some things in these places you probably remember going to. And then when I got there, it was, pitch black, and there was a Yiga member in this giant death machine with spikes coming right at me and chasing me around, and I would run behind it, and it would turn around and keep following me. And that was kind of terrifying the first time. And now it's more comedic, like, looking back on it, like they are. Right? Mm-hmm. But it felt cool, like, oh, okay, Yiga are like the only ones that are really in the depths. Like, they've kind of claimed that as their new stronghold since we've, taken down Koga in the last game. That was cool. And I agree, some of the little vehicle ideas were very funny and fun.
Yeah. I think that the Yiga popping out is kind of like the Where's Zelda newspaper side quest, where like it has a good one or two like tricks and then it just becomes funny, the first time you're like, wait, is that Zelda? It can sort of like make you question, but then after that you're like, nah, it's not.
It gets pretty old by the end. I kind of got tired in the story of like the new champions being like, oh, that kind of looked like Zelda in that flashback. Nah, that couldn't have been them. Nah.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on.
I think that's the price you pay for the order being variable,
sure.
to truly let someone choose what order that they do the big things in. It means every single one of them, let me tell you about the imprisoning war.
Right. Yeah, it was like an identical cutscene. I wasn't a huge fan of that. But the dungeons were pretty fun. What was your favorite? Tell me your favorite dungeon.
I liked the kind of the variety in general. I think I like things that are in a clear sky. So I think that, or at least, in kind of a blue open environment. So that meant the Zora dungeon was pretty fun to me. I think that I liked all of the minecarts. It was a hard dungeon for me, but I liked the fire dungeon. How about you?
Thematically, I thought I did the Retote one last, and I just thought it was really cool. Just this giant airship in the sky, as well as the Goron one. There weren't only one or two were in the depths. And I thought that was kind of a missed opportunity because this giant, massive fire temple, glowing red in the bottom of these giant chasms felt super, super cool. And yeah, the minecarts were definitely difficult to wrap my head around, but I also cheesed a lot just by climbing throughout that dungeon, which it just lets you do, which is fun. I will say I'm a little disappointed that these take on the exact same format as the last game, where it's find the 4 or 5 things in order to unlock the boss. I still think it was very well designed and very good. I was just kind of hoping there might be a different premise to them. Mm-hmm. But, like I said, they were very fun. And, yeah.
I wonder if that decision was made because it uses the same overworld map, so there are still like 4 fairly equidistant areas of most interest, like the desert, the Zora capital, the Mount right. Death Mountain, the volcano, and the Rito village. So like there's still the like 4 big places that draw your attention. So
yeah.
I think that they still put a bit of a twist on it by having it be you do those 4 and then it's like, but you're not done yet. There's another dungeon, because that would felt really cool and fresh, because I was like, I don't know where I'm going to have to go for this.
Right, a secret dungeon. Well, what if it was all 4 though? Wouldn't it have been nice if you didn't know where any of them were, instead of, okay, it's like Breath of the Wild, I just go to the same main cities again. Like, there's some twists on it. Each city has been affected in some way, right? And the dungeons themselves, you have a partner with them, which is a new idea for Zelda. But I kind of missed, like, not knowing the layout of the map, so it made the dungeons a little less fun for me to know exactly, at least, where to start them, right? Start those quests. But yeah, it was still really cool. And yes, I agree, that 5th secret dungeon was a very fun quest to do. I did find the, whatever it's called, the depot, in advance, and I was like, I can't do anything here. I bet I have to come back here later, because I saw the outline of the mech suit or whatever.
Oh, wow.
So
cool.
I was kind of like, okay, this will probably come into play later, I think. So it was cool. It was nice and rewarding when that did happen.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, was there any other interesting things that happened to you? Like, give me your major highlights of your playthrough.
I think I really enjoyed creating and failing. There were some really funny moments for me when it came to trying to create Zonai devices. Of like, I bet this will work. And, I put a bomb or... I put like some sort of bomb at the front of my vehicle and be like, I think I can explode them. And then it just totally backfires. Those were some really fun and memorable moments for me. I also, some of my favorite memories, I think I talked about how my fiance and I did like a day of just horse simulator work where we just went around and got the best horses and just rode across the map before even going to the towers. That was a great time as well. It was just a reminder to me of you can experience the game really in whatever way is most fun for you. And I think that the enemy to joy in this game is to focus on the dissatisfaction of, I'm probably doing this suboptimally. Like this traveling is probably not as good as some other expert player. It's like, just do what's most fun.
Yeah, that's certainly the philosophy. And I do want more open world, open air design Zelda games in the future. I think they absolutely nailed the feeling of I get to experiment, I get to decide how I solve this puzzle, and I get to decide how I approach this combat scenario. There's a lot of freedom there, and yeah, I want to see that again, just in a new world, with a Link that smiles.
Yes, please.
Awesome. Well, it was fun to kind of look back on this game with you. But before we wrap things up, we have listener mail. We have 2 letters to read today. One of them is from Allison, who has written in before. I think she won one of our contests, actually. And she has a star piece and a quick jab for us. So I'm going to go ahead and read those. Star piece. One of my star pieces is the fact that your horses from Breath of the Wild transfer over to the new game. It was more than a pleasant surprise when I went up to a stable with a freshly caught horse, and they informed me I already had horses. It would have been nice if other things transferred over, but the horses were a definite plus, in my opinion. I also really like how shooting stars can fall with you in Tears of the Kingdom, like when you're diving from the Skylands. I agree with that. That was really cool. It's happened to me a few times, so I don't think it's rare, but I still really enjoy being able to see and catch a falling star in midair. Yeah, those were very, very cool moments. And the horses thing, too, except all my best horses were on my Wii U file for Breath of the Wild. I didn't really focus on horses when I played the game on the Switch. So Mariah, though, she got all her horses back. That was a cool thing. And it made sense, too. It's like, they didn't advertise this. They were just like, oh, yeah, like, of course Link would still have his horses registered. Mm-hmm. That was cool.
It does make you ask questions of, well, why doesn't he have... his master shield. What do you call that? Hylian shield.
Yeah.
It is fun. I will say I heard some people say that was hard for them because they were like, I had to let go of my like most valuable and beloved horses to catch new ones.
And it's kind of fun. I didn't really do this, but you can upgrade the horses too, like their stats.
Yeah.
By making meals, like specific meals. That's a cool thing.
That's a cool mechanic.
That they added that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Allison.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, wait, hang on. We still got to read her quick jab as well. She said, I think my biggest quick jab, though, is the trading system. In Breath of the Wild, prices are the same in all provinces for all items, which was straightforward enough and made sense. But this game's persistence in that mechanic disappointed me. In places like the Rito village, spoilers ahead, they were caught in an eternal blizzard and all the adults had to leave and scrounge for food. It didn't make sense for the children to buy mushrooms for 2 rupees and ore for 80 or more. Ore isn't useful if you're starving. That makes sense. I will say I did run out of rupees more in this game than I did in the last game. Like, I was kind of always broke, which was cool. It was a fun challenge for me to be like, oh, okay, I really gotta, do some more mining in the caves. Again, thank you, Allison. That was it was great to hear from you again. And we have a new listener as well named Charles who wrote in. Charles said, Rising from My Grave, which is a 2P Start reference. Love that. Just wanted to write in and say I'm really enjoying the podcast. I first listened to the 2 Sonic episodes you did with Ray Hargraves, and it was a lot of fun as a fellow 2P Start fan. I planned to go to the beginning of Level With Us at that time, but instead went down the rabbit hole of listening to all of the 2P Start podcasts.
Any reason to go back there.
Yeah. It was a deep rabbit hole full of longing for the Wii and DS era, and a true bit of sadness that the Wii U 3DS shop closures were overlapping with this nostalgia trip. But I have emerged literal months later and have been enjoying Level With Us. I'm still at the end of the 2021 Your Best Games of the Year episode, but I'll get caught up. The Layton retrospective was particularly interesting as I have not played the single game in that franchise, but I was always curious about them. I'd like to end with a question. Spoiler, don't worry, it's rhetorical. I like JRPGs, puzzle games, Mario Kart, and Smash with my kids, and an occasional Fallout or Uncharted, Pokemon, and Rock Band. Would you recommend a short hike? Thanks for reading, new fan Charles.
This is a really excellent question because I'm actually really passionate about this. I don't know about you, but you should play a short hike.
You should play a short hike.
I think you should play a short hike.
I think you should. I think you absolutely should.
If you like Rock Band, you should play a short hike.
In all seriousness, yes. Like, you could say, oh, a short hike is like an open world game platformer collectathon. If I don't like platformer collectathons, should I play it? Yes, because it's so short. Like, you can just, it's so cheap too. Like, you'll barely spend any money on it. And it's delightful from beginning to end. Cozy games weren't really a thing when this thing came out. So, like, for us to be like, oh, it feels so good to play, it's so lovely, it still holds up because it was just kind of, I don't know, any game where the creator is like, I made the game I wanted to play, has always turned out really good. From Stardew Valley to A Short Hike to Undertale. It's just a passion project, and it's so delightful, and it's like, what was it? It was like half the price of a movie ticket, but like 3 times as fulfilling. That's what I heard once, and I agree with that sentiment. So,
like that.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking perhaps the easiest question to know the answer to of
He did
Jared
say it was
I.
rhetorical, so yeah.
Hey, no, if you ask, I'll
we
answer.
all know the answer. Yep. Awesome. Hey, thank you very much. And if anyone else would like to write in, you are more than welcome to do so. Our email is levelwithuspodcast@gmail.com, which you should write into us because we've got a little game giveaway. We're giving away a code to a free copy of an indie game, and to enter, you need to write us an email and tell us about an indie game we might have overlooked recently or one coming out soon that we should definitely cover on the show. We will randomly select the winner, but we'll be reading some of the entries on the show to give our thoughts on those indie games and maybe plan for the future if we should cover some of them. So, the game we are giving away, thanks to our friends at Yacht Club Games, is Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon. This is a game we've already covered on the show, and I'll include a link to that episode in the show notes for this current episode. But we both recommend it. It's really fun. I basically call it turn-based combat meets Tetris, and I find it enthralling. I still pull it out a few times to give it a couple plays. Really good. And they also just released a huge free update called the Puzzlers Pack DLC, which includes new playable characters, quandary challenges, new relics, robust run modifiers, and expansive new areas to explore. I'm just reading the description on their website. And it's completely free. And I played a little bit of it. Mona is a new character, and her ability is to detonate potions, which completely changes the way you play that game. It's very, very cool. Totally recommended it. We're giving a Steam code away. So, if you want a Steam code, please write in, and we'd be more than happy to hook you up with this fantastic indie gem.
Hear, hear.
They really know what they're doing over there. So, hope to hear from all of you soon so that you can enter to win for that game.
Please write. You never call.
Yeah, you never call us. Please write us. And thank you so much for tuning in today. We'll be back next time to talk about indie games and challenge each other to some video game trivia challenges. But until then, I'm Jared.
I'm Marcus.
And we'll level with you then.